7 o'clock, I'd like to call the East Lyme Inland Wetlands Agency meeting to order. Just to note, this is our regularly scheduled December 13th meeting tonight. We are going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and we have Phyllis Berger, Doreen Ryan, I'm Kristen Chantrell, we have Dave Schmidt, Don Bimminster, and we have Greg McIntyre as the seated alternate today. So first we're going to add to the agenda under pending applications, the application for 2 Gurley Road. Does anyone can somebody please make a motion to add that?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so moving on to public delegations. Public delegations is the time when members of the public are invited to speak to the commission about certain matters, issues or concerns related to approved wetland permits and in-house proposals, or general topics of discussion are open to comment. Agenda items, referrals, applications subject to a decision by the commission, a public hearing, or in litigation may not be discussed. The members of the commission will not directly answer questions or make comment during delegations. Is anyone here tonight to speak to us about any matter that is not currently on the agenda? Yep. Anna, just state your name and your address, please.
Donald Danella, 24 Patagansett Drive. This is just at the spur of the moment, but I'm following one of the applications on the agenda tonight, and I went to the town website under the Inland Wetlands Agency on Friday and saw that there were no materials posted whatsoever. I didn't realize that an applicant doesn't have to have those materials into the town. They don't even have to have it the day of the hearing, I was told. I think this is rather unfair, particularly when you're having a public hearing. I think the public has a right to know what is being proposed, what the applicants are going to do about it. I think these materials should be posted at a minimum 24 hours before an agency meeting. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Is there do we have stipulations for how much in advance stuff has to be posted?
We try to do 24 hours in advance. As the public hearing is open, what I expressed to Mr. Danilla is that the applicant could have came to this meeting and submitted his materials this evening. Where previously, pre-COVID, that was kind of the case, or the materials would be submitted at the previous meeting, and we could possibly have comment today. I mean, we literally received comment from applicants, professionals, and as well as the town system professionals today. So we posted those as quickly as we could as soon as we received them to the website. I think that's the best we can do. Understanding the public hearing is open and those items are available for public inspection. That's what we have to work on.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. So we'll move on to the public hearing. The application of Kristen Clark, PE, for Cold Spring Lot Management, LLC, John Drabick, owner, for Nottingham Hills Subdivision Phase 5. Prepared for Kristen Clark, PE, English Harbor Asset Management, LLC, for an 8-lot subdivision of property at 121 Upper Patagansett Road, East Lyme, Assessors Map 35.0, Lot 44.
Good evening, members of the commission. My name is Paul Gurley, representing English Harbor Asset Management Company, which is the applicant under contract with the owner purchase this property. I think at this point you have pretty much everything that our professionals have submitted. Ms. Lorraine is here today just in case there's any questions regarding the site plan itself. But at this point, based on the email correspondence I received from Close, the town engineer, and from Mr. Gaishel, it appears that all staff concerns have been addressed. Just by way of background, you may recall that when we initially proposed the application, biofilter that was proposed in the wetlands based on staff, meetings with staff and their comments and some back and forth. That was removed from the plans. There's no activity in the wetlands. As I explained previously, there's 2 wetlands on the property, but there is no activity within the wetlands themselves. One of the wetlands is 430 feet away from the closest home site, with the other 70 feet uphill from most of the proposed development. We have 2 reports from Richard Snarsky, who did an initial evaluation of the property and a subsequent evaluation, and he has concluded that the development will have no adverse impact on the wetlands. In particular, due to some of the design work that our engineer has done, we are reducing the peak runoff from storms from present conditions by 25%. We were enabled to do that by virtue of removing some of the existing impervious surfaces, which include some buildings that are on the property as part of the Girl Scout camp, some of the roadway, and some tent sites where there are platforms that under the regulations constitute impervious surfaces. And in addition, by using the use of rain gardens, we've minimized any impact and flow there so that water will be retained on site and directed into the ground where it will remediate automatically. The report from Mr. May, which is part of the record, indicates that the water quality will actually be improved as a result of the design proposals here. Presently, a lot of the water surfaces right down the road into the street and then through a catch basin and line into Patagansett Lake untreated. That will not be the case post-development. I think at this point, I believe Mr. Gaishel has submitted to the Commission a motion with respect to the approval of this, but I believe at this point in time we would satisfy all the requirements under the inland wetlands regulations and would ask for your approval, unless there's any questions beforehand.
Who will be maintaining the rain gardens?
Rain gardens are going to be maintained by the owners as part of the planning application. We have submitted maintenance agreements and easements with respect to that, and they're part of the record in that application.
So when someone purchases a property, they agree to a maintenance agreement.
Correct. It will
to maintain the rain gardens?
Yes, it will be subject to what we call a subject to in the deed, and I think I indicated at prior commission meetings, DEEP also provides pamphlets. What we did with Kensington is the same thing. We will provide pamphlets to the owner as to the maintenance and use of the rain garden, the fact that they can't fill it in, they can't do activity in there. They're fairly shallow to begin with, so it's not as if somebody has a detention basin that kind of comes to mind when you think about these. But and the maintenance is generally very minimal. It's basically maintained by keeping the appropriate plantings in the rain garden.
I have a question about some, it said for some of the documents for today's meeting, it said, where was it? Like Exhibit DD, and it said revised plans December 10th. So is that just the date that it was uploaded, or were the plans actually revised?
Oh, so the revised plan were the comments from Ledgelight. We had, one of the lots had another test hole that Ledgelight, as part of their review process, wanted a test hole done on it. That was done approximately a week and a half ago. The revised plan includes the information that Ledgelight was seeking on the percolation test results for that. So that's what you see with the revised plan. And actually, I received this morning from Wendy Brown Arnold, who is the supervisor over at Ledgelight, an approval for that lot and the other lots in terms of septic.
Okay.
That's what you can see when it's uploaded at this late date.
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't find what was revised in the I was trying to see if there was something, what the change was, yeah.
And all the properties have been approved for septic by Ledgelight?
That's correct.
And it's 3-bedroom homes they've been approved for, correct?
They do, if I'm reading.
Well,
One
it
of them's a
says
4-bedroom.
some of them are 4, but
Right.
you're accepting review of 3-bedroom homes for, has that been modified for a few that, 53, lots 53, 58, and 56?
I'm not entirely sure
There's a letter dated December 9th from English Harbor Asset Management. From Kristen Clark.
Oh,
Exhibit
that's-
CC?
I think that's the design review. The answer is yes. The lot 58, which they asked for the additional perk test on, she approved as a for bedroom house, if that was where the design.
Oh, okay, okay.
Well, it says lot 55 here. This letter dated December 12th says that lot 55 is suitable.
It's lot 55, you're right, I'm sorry. I'm looking at
Okay.
it, there's a typo. She has lot 59, that should be lot 58. I'll speak with her about that in the morning, just correcting that on the top of my mind.
Does anyone else have any questions? I think we're good with questions right now. I think we'll give an opportunity for anybody from the public to speak.
Certainly, thank you.
Thank you. Come on up.
Donald Vanilla, D-A-N-I-L-A, for Patagansett Driveways, Lyme. I'm Vice President of the Patagansett Lake Association. I'm going to speak on behalf of this organization. I have taken the opportunity to review this project materials on the town website, at least not the present materials, previous materials. My professional background is in fisheries biology and ecology, not engineering or land development, so please bear with me here. For this project to be environmentally sound and meet all regulations, conditions, I'm relying on town professional staff. I am fully confident that they've been up to the task in reviewing this proposed development. After going through previous minutes of this agency about this proposed development, I have just a few miscellaneous comments. I applaud the amount of open space proposed for this development and hope it remains just as that. In this and other applications to town agencies, I've often seen how developers like to take credit for reducing stormwater volume over present conditions on the site. I think important to note that in many instances, the property in question has little or no activity occurring before development. Few or no residents, less impervious surfaces than the proposed development will have, little or no septic waste, little or no fertilizer use, no pet waste being deposited, etc. Even though stormwater volume will be reduced after development, it's likely that it will have much greater concentration of nutrients and other chemicals and bacteria than did stormwater runoff resulting from the original condition. Thus, there must be means for alleviating any increased pollution. Another thing I noticed in the materials was that in the May engineering report, the 100-year storm used for analysis was given as 7.1 inches of rain. Tropical storm Ida hit our area on September 1 and 2 of this year and dropped a reported 7.3 inches of rain in East Lyme. I know the likelihood of having another rainstorm of that magnitude is relatively low, but I bet it will occur well before another 100 years have passed. I also know professional engineers have to use certain defined standards in their analyses. However, I certainly wish these standards would be updated to reflect the unfortunate new reality of climate change and the more frequent heavy rainstorms we are and will be getting. Thus, stormwater designs must reflect this new reality and be able to handle the more frequent and heavier rainstorms. I was pleased to see in the original plans for the development included a biofilter. So any runoff, the maintenance of which was supposed to be the responsibility of the developer. So I guess any runoff, as I just heard, there will not be a biofilter. So any runoff thought to be remediated by this technology will not occur at this development. I was also pleased to see and then hear that rain gardens are being proposed to accept runoff from home roofs and perhaps other portions of each property. These technologies, if properly used and maintained, should result in reduction of nutrients entering surface and groundwater discharges. I note that one of the primary issues for the Patagansett Lake Association has been the control and removal of excess aquatic vegetation in the lake, a topic that has come before this agency several times, including tonight. Excessive growth of aquatic macrophytes imposes limits on human uses of the lake and likely affects aquatic life within the lake itself. Increased nutrient inputs will only exacerbate this issue. The problem here is to make sure that these technologies are actually put into place and properly maintained over many years of life that this development will have. I have personal knowledge of property in this town that was supposed to have installed a rain garden, which I believe was a condition imposed by this agency. Anyway, I know the rain garden was never installed. So who inspects whether or not a developer goes through with either self-imposed or agency-directed conditions such as these? I hope the agency might put some conditions in allowing for follow-up inspections or reporting. Regarding septic systems that will be used, I assume the agency has little or no say over these designs. Certainly Like does. I therefore would like to appeal directly to the developers to install the most up-to-date septic systems as they can, including those that enhance the removal of nutrients, particularly nitrogen. I recently participated in the Western Connecticut State University webinar where nutrient removal was discussed in an area in Brookfield, Connecticut, located on the shores of Conduit Lake. New septic tank technologies are suggested to be used to reduce groundwater nutrient inputs into the lake, as well as more simple solutions such as requiring more frequent pumping of septic tanks. I wish we could do that here to protect Patagansett Lake. Finally, I note that a statement was made that there will be no activity in the beach area, which will remain as it is, with property owners having the rights of using lake frontage, but with no development proposed on the lake itself. My question here is what is meant by, quote, unquote, remain as is. When the Girl Scout camp and its successor were in operation, swim buoys, walkways, and swim raft were placed into the lake. However, once these entities ceased operation for the past couple of years, nothing has been placed within the lake itself, although some of these materials have been left on the lakefront. I do not want to suggest denying future property owners the right of usage of the lake. However, if they would like to reinstall swim buoys and swim lines, I would like to make it clear that the HOA or whomever will govern this group of households must obtain the proper regulatory marker permit issued by Connecticut Deep for swim buoys and other structures. After all, Patagansett Lake is state-owned, and any denial of access to any part of the lake should be limited in extent. On behalf of the PLA, I will be monitoring this development to ensure that the proper procedures have been followed. Thanks for allowing me to comment.
Thank you. Is there someone else that would like to speak as well? So I actually have some follow-up questions for you, Mr. Garrity, if I could.
Sure.
So as far as the beach area, there's nothing that's going to be proposed for that area, for that location?
There's nothing proposed. That area actually is the remaining part of the Girl Scout camp. Even though it's bisected by the road legally, that is all one parcel after the subdivision with the Girl Scout camp. And there's nothing proposed for that at this point in time. But, you know, what in the future, I don't know, but obviously anything that gets proposed has to come before the appropriate town commission and or DEP, as this gentleman said.
Okay. Yeah, so the houses aren't, they don't have access to that. Who has access to that area right now?
Yeah. The entire parcel stretches across the road.
Right. So do the properties that are, the properties that you're proposing now, they don't go across the road?
They do not go across the road. They end at just before the paved portion of the road. There's a setback from the pavement.
Okay.
So there's no deeded rights in the
Correct.
title?
And so the runoff now, since there is no biofilter, what is happening to the runoff? I don't know if I've seen do you have the updated revised, what exhibit it is? What number? So where's the runoff going?
Exhibit DD are the revised plans. It includes the change, which is the test pit. But on those plans, as well as the last set, also removed the biofilter. So the runoff currently.
Oh, this one, the website crashes every time I open this. I looked at this before. Are you able to open it? Here. Thanks, I was trying to look at this one.
collected by the rain gardens. And what isn't collected by them will sheet flow over the land to the street and follow the current patterns that exist.
Is there a vegetated buffer in between the property and the street?
It would be most likely a road shoulder on the east side, and then on the west side of the road, that existing vegetated buffer along the beach would remain. So you would even have that, you'd have to cross the street, around, go over, and run through that existing vegetation. So you're indicating that.
Right, so this is going to remain undeveloped. This area here essentially is the buffer. See the lots end approximately right there. So there is that area, the water coming on the sheet, or excuse me, on the surface here, wherever there's development gets picked up by the rain gardens and the existing. And then the other water is traveling its current natural path. But as we said, the May engineering report indicates that with the removal of some of the impervious surfaces, it will reduce the flow and allow more absorption into the soil, attenuating the quality of the water. If I may, Madam Chair, just one, in response to your question of the December 9th letter from Crystal Park. Yeah, it was in my email, but I didn't see, but you're correct. We stand by what's in the letter and the comments on that.
Okay.
If I can address the gentleman's question regarding
Please.
septic systems, these are GST designs. They are the most current technological available designs that we have. And we use them simply because you have a much better chance of getting approved by the health district when you're using something like this. So it's designed to contain as much and attenuate as much of the material going in there as possible before it impacts into the soil for the MLS, which is the leaching spray, before it leaves the property.
So the water that's flowing over the property, I mean, people are going to be using fertilizer, is going to sheet flow over the property and then across the street. But I guess I'm just having trouble visualizing how that's going to be, if there's any pesticide use, fertilizer use, how it's not going to go across the street into the lake.
Well, most of the water is going to be retained on the property, so it's going to leach into the ground, and that would then collect that material. The other thing too is that the commission's role here is to determine whether or not we're impacting the wetland, and these developments are essentially above the wetlands on there. So even though it's outside, it's not. We don't see that it has any, based on the engineering reports, that it has any negative ecological impact on the lake itself. And the Snarski reports indicate that that he doesn't believe, based on his review, that there would be any negative impact on the wetlands themselves.
So, Gary, couldn't they put some, like a culvert along the front of the property so the water would dump into that before it goes across the street?
Like a swell?
Swale, yeah.
That's the intent behind
Yeah.
the rain gardens.
Well,
And that when we had swells in here previously, I believe those were some of the new design.
Correct. There's check dams that catch water coming down on the properties and divert it into the woods. So that's one of the other, and they're designed to be, for lack of a better term, low impact designs, so low maintenance designs, so that the owners really don't have to think about it all that much. And that's what the engineer had designed for most of the properties with these check dams. That you want to think of it as a swale, like on a hiking trail or whatever, where it diverts the water off the trail into the woods, and that's what those designs are intended to do.
yeah. I mean, the rain gardens are nice, but there's no way that you're going to be able to enforce a property owner to do it.
Well, you know, I'd like to think on the brighter side of it.
Positive.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason for the design, to make them essentially as low impact's probably the wrong term for it, but as minimal as possible, so that maintenance isn't an issue in terms of, you know, what the wetlands biologist said is doesn't require any sort of attention from the homeowner on it, so that it just takes care of itself.
So, do you have a specific spot on on the lot where that rain garden would go?
Yeah, each lot has a rain garden designed for a specific location in order to maximize the retention.
Is it on the plans?
Yes, it is.
Because you're not building the houses, you're just selling the
No, you're not.
lots.
Right.
Can you show on the plans, like I'm trying to remember when you presented a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And I can't find it myself.
Right, and so it's on the plans, and then the actual design and sizing of them is all on the plans as well. So.
This is on John Paul Marine Borough Marine Civil Engineering Land Plan. This is Tim May's plan, the design for the rain gardens themselves, and he's got them shown on each lot. And also the sheet runoff that you're talking about is primarily coming from the area that's not being developed. And everything, as Mr. Garrity said, on the individual lots are pretty much designed to collect as much as they possibly can for each lot itself.
I was just gonna say, just for the record, could you just point out, just say what plan you're looking at?
This is the May engineering plan, October 10th, 2021, sheet 101.
I would just note, after talking with the applicant, staff suggested the removal of the vinyl retention pond only because it was collecting the runoff from the existing impervious surfaces. So it was not treating or collecting any runoff from the proposed construction. So it really didn't make a whole lot of sense to treat the existing condition, which is pretty good. But to answer your question, Phyllis, they could put a bioswale in along the road frontage. Again, there's a separation distance between the proposed septic locations that they have to maintain. And if they couldn't, I think it's 25 feet down grading, if they couldn't achieve that, then the swell, much likely not allow the swell to.
Well, you could also have the issue of the water running down, and it could create a problem as far as icing in the winter.
Well, the property, you're out on the road, there's a dip from the road. So
Right.
the road goes down and then goes back up to the other side with respect to that. So the water doesn't actually reach the road in that, most of that section on there. And it, towards the north, I gotta think of where, I always want to think it's south there. It's towards the northerly boundary of the property. The property, it's the elevation is lower, so all the water tends to go down. That's the reason essentially for the existing pipe under the road that takes the water off.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what, that photo you had showed us a while back where the town installed some riprap in, I mean, something like that along the road there to catch the water. Is that feasible?
Yeah, I mean, we're actually getting land on the shore.
Yeah, there between the boundary line and the paved portion of the road, there's extra, there's land as part of the property. That's all being retained by the developer. And I would point out too that we've got limits of clearings on there between the street in order to maintain the visual line of the street, but also to allow for an area for the runoff to be trapped. If anything gets beyond the swales and they're designed, the swales are designed to try and capture as much, if not all, the water that's coming down from the developed area of the property.
And that's based on a 100-year storm?
Yes. And it's a reduction of 24%, so it's a significant reduction from the existing runoff on there.
Anybody else have questions? Comments, anybody? Going once? All right, I think that answers my questions for now.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak to this before we close the public hearing?
Good catch.
No? All right, well, I guess with that presentation do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
I move we close the public hearing.
Second?
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So do we move on and then discuss later in the agenda, or do we discuss now?
The agenda further
We
down.
follow the agenda, we accept the minutes, XCL report, and then we're back to.
Got it, okay. All right, so moving on, the acceptance of minutes. Do I hear a motion to accept the minutes of November 8th, 2021 special meeting?
I move we accept them.
What am I gonna do when I'm not here next month?
I'm waiting.
Second, anybody?
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, ex officio report. Now, we don't have Paul,
We don't have
so,
an ex officio this month.
okay.
We'll get one next month.
All right, so, new business, application of Solitude Lake Management, applicant for Patricia Brooks, owner, for determination of permitted non-regulated activity at property located at 14 Upper Walnut Hill Road, East Lyme, for the removal of nuisance aquatic vegetation to maintain an open water for irrigation and aquatic wildlife.
Applicants here, but they were asking for a determination, pretty clear, I think. They have an existing pond, they want to do some waste management, to maintain that pond for their agricultural use. Being that they have that use, recommended, they would ask first whether or not they need to obtain a permit, whether the commission would find it exempt under section 4 of the regulations. You read that section, if you like.
It's an agricultural use already?
Is the existing pond? Yes.
Okay,
They use the pond for irrigation.
okay.
That's it.
So, yeah, that doesn't come before us, right?
You have, they did ask for a determination, so you would make a determination that it's a non-regulated activity, exempt under section 4 of the regulations.
Just like a rubber stamp.
Do we have to
Like a rubber stamp.
Yeah, we have
Make a
to make a
motion?
motion.
Yes, we need a motion.
Okay.
Would you like to make
I
a
mean-
motion?
Can you repeat what I'm supposed to say? I make a motion that this is a non-regulated activity, and it doesn't need to come before the Inland Wetland Agency to determine for a permit
Pursuant to section 4.
pursuant to section 4.4A.
4A.
We appreciate the information.
That's 4.1A.
All right,
Pursuant to section 4.1A.
anyone want to second that?
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, the meeting calendar 2022. Looks like the meetings are moved to the beginning of the month.
Yes, except for the January meeting, because we need 30 days between the time it gets posted in the clerk's office and that meeting, it gets pushed to the holiday. I picked the closest day we could, which is the 18th. But aside from that, we're trying to set it up so that the workflow is a little better in the office. Schedule a meeting between all the applications for projects.
Yeah, that's fine. The only date that kind of stood out to me was July 5th. It's a holiday week. I don't know if we can move that one. But we could do that closer to that meeting, correct?
Yeah, you can cancel the meeting and move it, hold a special meeting.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the 2022 meeting calendar?
I'll make a motion to approve the 2022 calendar.
I second.
All those in favor?
Approved.
All right, new business? No, moving on to pending applications. All right, the application for Kristen Clark, PE for Cold Spring Lot Management, LLC, John Drabick, owner for Nottingham Hills Subdivision Phase 5. Prepared for Kristen Clark, PE, English Harbor Asset Management, LLC, for an 8-lot subdivision of property at 121 Upper Patagansett Road, East Lyme Assessors Map, 35.0, Lot 44. Discussion?
Madam Chair, your,
Oh, yes.
alternate hasn't been present.
Thank you. If you could recuse yourself.
Do I have to
please.
recuse myself?
Yes.
Do I have to physically leave? Okay.
You can sit in the crowd, though.
You can sit in the crowd, yeah.
You're not really
Right.
recusing yourself in so much as.
It's just not being
You're not
seated.
prepared, you're not being seated as an alternate.
So, Gary, you put together,
I put together a memo with findings.
which one is, I thought I saw it on here.
I have it up on my screen, I don't know.
Exhibit, is it?
It's
It's the,
Exhibit HH.
yeah, HH dash
Maybe
one,
I need a
HH dash
refresh.
121. It's dated
There it
today,
is.
yeah, there you go, that's it.
Do we want to discuss this before we go through this? I mean, I like the idea of having a swale at the end, or I just think that, you know, maybe currently people are gonna have vegetation at the front of their properties, but you're gonna have a Lakeview home, you're gonna wanna clear it, and my concern is the flow of water over the properties into the road, into the lake. So if we could do some kind of swale or,
Yeah, we call it a bioswale to collect runoff. Again, you have to, I mean, you could condition that, that the bioswale be installed along the road frontage for that purpose. Again, we'll have to work with the engineer on a design to figure out what the grade would look like and how it can fit. And I can bring it back to the commission.
I mean, as we well know, we just had that storm with 5 inches of very strong rain that washed away a lot of soil and dirt, and you're gonna be clearing that property there, and if we're gonna get a huge rainstorm like that, which is inevitable, I just worry that a lot of that sediment and everything's just gonna flow right into the lake.
And similar to what the town did, I mean, obviously if they install a sort of riprap or even it's a vegetated swale, I'd probably recommend vegetated if we can
Yeah.
do that. You know, the town will maintain as part of the existing drainage system that's there. I mean, I think that would be reasonable. But I think in a condition, we don't have a design here to approve, so I think you're leaving that up to the town engineer and the applicant's engineer to agree upon that stormwater design. Which certainly we can do. I'm more than happy to facilitate that and bring that back to you for review. Certainly any swale, we want the town engineer to ensure that it's not going to create a lacing issue or anything like that out onto the road as well. So I feel confident if they were to come to the meeting on something there for stormwater.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty steep property, so I imagine, I don't know, I just have a tough time that the rain gardens are going to capture all the runoff.
Based on their location, would probably catch the majority of the roof runoff, portion of the driveway, and the portion of the driveway is going to, again, head down the channel, check dams along the shoulder, driveway shoulder, which effectively works as a bioswale out of itself. It's long, so you'll have some renovation there. Not a ton, but the check dams will slow down the flow of water.
And this is on the side of the driveway?
And these are on the side of the driveway. So if you look at how the plan's designed, the rain gardens are essentially catching the roof runoff.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're so upgraded, and then the remainder flows through the driveway swells.
And is that something that needs to be maintained?
The swells?
Yeah.
Yes.
And-
That's what I thought with your first question to them, is who maintains the rain gardens and such. Those requirements have to be put into the deed.
Right, no, I know, I did ask about the rain gardens, but the swales,
But yeah,
That as
swales and
well.
check dams would also have to be maintained.
got it, okay.
Periodically
Is-
inspected for leaf debris and things like that. I suspect because it's in their front yard, they'll maintain it as a lawn swale.
Mm-hmm.
They can mow. They're working on the check dams, but that would keep the area in front of the check dam pretty clear of the debris, I would think.
And like move on to something else because
No, go ahead,
you
I'm-
didn't finish, but with regards to the rain gardens, and you know it's in the deed, but who's to say? Like, is there any way that the town can inspect it? Like, I mean, I guess it's.
We can inspect the construction during, you know, the homes, when the homes are built. You know, 5 years down the road, if it gets built in, that's a tough one to police.
Yeah.
Unless you see them actively filling it.
There's really nothing we could do. Okay.
Okay.
That may make more justification for the swell along the frontage.
What about pervious driveways? Can that be a consideration?
Gravel,
Either the pavers,
pavers, gravel, absolutely.
a requirement,
You could condition it.
condition it, yeah.
It's tough because it's like you want to believe that the people are going to do the right thing, but you never know.
Yeah, I know, I agree. And I just, like I said, my concern about water going into the lake, so I think having some kind of backup.
The only limitation on, I would say gravel or pavers would be slope. Once you get over, it's 10%, you're gonna have to pave it for the zoning code. That's the limitation to that.
Okay, so
But I don't
still
think-
could be put into it. If it doesn't meet town requirements, then obviously it wouldn't work.
Right.
But I'm sure some of them would work, I would think,
so.
yeah.
Any comments over here, guys?
The drainage report is built on the assumption that they'll be paid driveways, right?
Correct.
And for the record, John Casey, special lady counsel.
Jerry, what about curbing? Would that be helpful?
Might be counterproductive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I tend to think it might be counterproductive because it's gonna help channelize the flow of water along the driveways.
Okay,
Certainly, if, again, the curbing on one side of the driveway, and if they elevate the driveway such that everything discharges toward the swale, which hopefully that's how it's designed, and I suspect that's how it's viewed
what about on the street, in front?
in front as far as
Yeah, like abutting the properties so that the water's not flowing over the road. It's hitting a curb. Well, I guess it's still gonna go over,
It's still,
yeah.
yes, that doesn't stop.
Yeah.
Have a depression, it would just heighten the crest of that.
Yeah, right.
Add toward storage capacity or something. 6-inch curb.
Cape Cod curb?
I kind of feel like the best option might be the swale along the road as a backup in case people don't follow through with the rain gardens. I feel like the requiring pavers or having a gravel driveway.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that's a lot, like really long, driveways.
Yeah.
I said a really long drive. I don't know. I feel like it's easier, more maybe cost effective to do the. I mean, I guess the cost would go into the buyers if we were doing the driveway
Right.
with pavers and stuff. But I don't know. I'm just trying to think. Something else. If there's any other options.
yeah.
In terms of driveways or managing the stormwater?
Just managing the stormwater.
Yeah, we're relying on rain, this whole plan is really relying on rain gardens that, let's be honest, probably most won't be kept for the next 30 years perfectly operating. So if we could have an alternate with a swale conditioned. I mean, that's kind of what I'm thinking, but
No guarantees those don't get changed either.
Well, it'd be on town property.
yeah.
The swale would.
I would note that the town doesn't own the property, we have the right of way through the property.
Would the town maintain the swale?
I will, yes, we maintain the right of way as it is,
Yeah.
maintain the asphalt.
I feel like that, because then the town would be maintaining that, but then,
We'd have
That's
to
kind
take
Plus,
that over.
it's in a highly visible.
what'd you say?
We may have to take it over as a public improvement for the town to maintain, or there have, just have some sort of agreement that this is a public improvement that the town maintains on private property. And we'll work that out with the planning agency if that comes to that, but
But didn't the town already do some work in the frontage?
yes,
Yeah.
to alleviate a drainage issue.
Did they go to the
I don't
property
know if
owner?
they obtained permission from the property owner or not, I suspect.
I believe they didn't. I think it was said that.
Confirm or deny.
I thought it may have been stated that it wasn't.
I think it was stated in the first.
Any other discussion? Do you want to make a motion?
Keep in mind, if this has to come back, I can't vote on it.
I know.
We're in a difficult
So-
place.
If we make a condition about the swale, can we still approve?
Yeah,
It's just,
you would make that a condition of approval.
of approval, and then you would bring that back to us?
I'd bring a design back to you and say, this is the best we can do.
So that would be the
And
next
meet the
meeting?
intent of the approval.
Yeah, that would be at
Okay.
the next meeting?
Or it might be a meeting or two beyond because they gotta design it.
But they could move forward at least,
Yeah,
like
they
if,
could move forward with whatever. The permit would have been issued.
okay,
And then as far as, obviously that design would have to come back before the start of any construction. They could, if you, the way that memo is read, if you use some of that language at the end, all the applicable items have to be completed prior to construction, things like that, so. I do believe we also recommended a bond for erosion sedimentation control be posted, not satisfactory to the town engineer, or acceptable to this commission as well. We have to figure that out, obviously the engineers will talk, come over a bond estimate that's suitable. I would anticipate somewhere between anywhere between $3,000 to $10,000. Not a huge amount of work.
And when someone purchases a property with having to require a rain garden to maintain, is that done through the town or is that done at the realtor's office? I mean, how clear is that made that that area of their property needs to be maintained as a rain garden?
It's in
Just
their-
curious,
it's
I
in their
mean-
deed.
It's
It's in the deed.
But is it up to the realtor to then
So
educate them?
It's maybe, the realtor may or may not, you can't make
Well,
them.
that's what I mean.
They're ultimately responsible to do their homework. Hopefully their attorney representing them at their closing discloses it to them, so they do know.
Mhm.
That's the best I think we can do.
Should be anyone else in that common scheme of development. I don't know if they're gonna have a homeowners association, but anyone else, if they're all subject to the same restrictions and covenants, if one of them doesn't follow through, others in the subdivision can enforce, the covenants against that homeowner. So
Okay.
5 of them are doing rain gardens and 3 of them aren't, and it's causing flooding the right zone or
Mhm.
whatever, those other members of the community are empowered to.
Okay.
For instance, we have 2 retention ponds in our condo. We are budgeting over the next 3 years $40,000 for maintenance on those. So, because we have a letter from the town, I'm just mentioning our case with our condo where we have those 2 retention ponds.
Oh.
That as an association, we have budgeted well, last year we spent 8,000 on one of them. And this spring coming, we've already budgeted and contracted to do the upper retention pond to the tune of $32,500. So,
Is
you
there
know,
an
because we
association
got a
there?
letter from the town several years back telling us we had to do it, and we're
I
doing
don't
it.
think so, right?
No, they're gonna be individual property owners.
Yeah, there's no homeowners association
No.
with this, with
Well,
this
there might
development.
be. There may be.
Well, who makes that decision?
The developer.
Oh,
Again, I'm fixated on the rain gardens, but that's why I'd really like to see an alternate backup.
That's
So.
passive. That doesn't require maintenance. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah.
So it would require,
Well, but the town's gonna do it.
you prefer to see it.
Yeah.
So
Conditioned, yeah.
If that was the case, I would recommend conditioning
Mhm.
that town reach an agreement with the developer. The structure be deeded to the town as a public improvement or something to that effect. Obviously, that's gonna be happening with the planning commission at that level versus here. But we can condition it that it be installed.
Why did they take it out before?
It was what they had was more of a, they call it a bioswale.
Okay.
It was a larger depression, more like a
Right.
detention area. And that was basically collecting all the existing runoff from the existing site, where there was no new proposed impervious surfaces. So treating that with a bioswale, to me, would really make a whole lot of sense, when the runoff is already being conveyed through a few acres of forest.
All right. So would anybody like to make a motion on this?
Well, we're not approving it, because he has to write it up, right? Do you have-
If you look at my memo, I did provide you some draft language.
You just wanna add one condition to it, right?
And I did include a series of conditions. I'm happy to go through the memo and discuss those language.
10 of them, right?
Pardon?
10 of them, right?
Correct.
Yeah, if you
You're
could.
at least gonna have to modify one of the whereas that had found that the design is the first full one on the top of page 2, where it talks about the rain gardens.
Do you want to go through this, Gary?
Yeah, yeah. Without reading every finding, I think I'll pull out the big ones. Whereas the application submitted includes all the information pursuant to section 7.5 of the East Lyme Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Regulations. It includes the site plans, wetland delineation by soil scientists depicted on the site plan, a description of the ecological communities and functions of the wetlands and watercourses, a description of how the applicant will change, diminish, or enhance the ecological communities and functions of wetlands and watercourses and management practices and other measures designed to mitigate the impact of the proposed activity pursuant to section 7.6 of the East Lyme Inland Wetland Regulations. As such, the applicant submitted in accordance with section 7.1 of the East Lyme Inland Wetland Regulations is complete. I would say that whereas down on page 1, that there was no direct impact on the wetland or watercourse, as the proposed activity is to occur in a distinct location outside the area of inland wetlands and watercourses, but within the 300-foot upland review area. The majority of all the proposed construction activities, with the exception of a shared driveway, will be conducted beyond 100 feet from any inland wetlands or watercourse, but within the 300-foot upland review area. Therefore, there are no irreversible and irretrievable loss of wetlands or watercourses which would be caused by the proposed regulated activity. And then we come to the whereas the council suggested we change, indicating after the word rain gardens in parentheses there. The second sentence indicates that the additional runoff is not being treated by the rain gardens, the sheet flow across the property. We would change and indicate that it would be collected by a bioswale along the frontage of Upper Patagansett Road.
That vegetated wood buffer, it's a 25-foot buffer, correct? If I remember correctly, that buffer, the vegetated buffer at the south side is at 25 foot. Is that something else that's supposed to stay there forever?
Well, there's no proposed conservation easement on it or anything like that. It's just part of that beach parcel
Okay.
area. I mean, it certainly can be noted. I would indicate, because there are wetlands on the site, the applicant is required to come before the agency, as you know, to make application. That said, the planning commission can't render a decision until the agency renders a report back to it. And typically that report comes in the form of a permit. So along with, if you do decide to approve the application, along with it, you can make comment such as, hey, we recommend either a conservation easement based on the vegetated area along that beach area. Whether or not that happens, I don't know. Certainly you can include that as part of the report.
Okay.
Would, if we were to get like a conservation easement to keep that area, would
This agency could ask for
that, like, to keep it vegetated, would we need the swale? You know, like, would that be enough?
I mean, would you need the swell if you remain vegetated?
Yeah, like, because I thought one of the things we were talking about was, well, you know, eventually someone may choose to mow that down, cut, you know, cut it down just because.
They would certainly need a permit from the agency to clear cut it because it's on the lakefront.
Yeah,
That,
you know, to have
know,
better,
obviously
better water view from your house.
Yeah, right.
We've
Right.
seen enough times people clear and then, you know, it's better to ask for.
Forgiveness and permission.
Right.
That it's like if we knew that that was going to stay, you know, heavily vegetated, would that be sufficient to catch, you know, if to catch any overland
Yeah, the
flow?
overland flow.
Well,
If the rain guards are doing, you know, I mean, this is all like what if,
Yeah.
but
the answer is yes, because that's the current proposal. Is that there is no bioswale along the road frontage, it's just a sheet flow over the road. So by keeping that area vegetated, it wouldn't change what's being proposed. So it's
yeah. So I don't know. Maybe now I'm going like maybe it is.
But to be clear, so there's the properties, the road, the vegetated buffer, the lake.
correct.
So what in my mind I'm envisioning is the property, the swale, the road, the buffer. the
Okay,
lake.
instead of it going over the
Yeah.
road into the.
Okay, sorry, continue.
You can go ahead.
Um,
I'm just. I'm
So
just
you would agree to change that one whereas it would be any runoff not treated by the rain gardens will sheet flow across proposed lawn or landscape areas and be collected in a
I'm sorry.
No,
Turning.
you're fine, you're fine.
Yes.
on the north side
Mhm.
of Patagansett Road before reaching any downgrade gradient wetlands and water course. It would also go through a vegetated buffer, so that's also on the north side. I'm sorry, on the south side. Then moving on, obviously the project will not adversely impact the ability of the wetlands to supply water and convey natural drainage patterns. doesn't impede the capacity of the wetlands to provide recreational open space values. And I would indicate that erosion and sedimentation controls will be established along the limits of disturbance to prevent sediment from entering the existing wetland watercourse. And the proposed project proposes a minimal intrusion into the upland review area for the purposes of grading associated with the construction of the driveway dwellings and the stormwater structures from gardens. As such, it's not anticipated to cause any substantial diminution of flow of groundwater levels to the wetlands nor result in the potential to cause pollution of the wetland or watercourse. The project doesn't seem to propose any activities which will damage or destroy any unique wetlands or such areas with demonstrable scientific or educational value, and as such, there are no other prudent and feasible alternatives that would eliminate or further reduce potential wetland impacts on the proposed activity, and proposed activities of a limited duration. Important. You see the conditions there. Did recommend that we put tags along that little wetland pocket every 25 feet in the center, sorry. Number 5, you can delete. Makes no sense. The area of land upland being disturbed within the 300-foot upland area shall be provided to the inland wetland agent. For what purpose? Typo. Eliminate that. Number 6 was the erosion sedimentation control bond, an amount satisfactory to the town engineer and the wetlands agency, and formally acceptable to the town of this line. That out. 7, 8, and 9 are pretty much boilerplate. Any proposed additional work beyond the permit for the 300-foot regulated area requires approval from the agency or the agent. Changes to the plan will require notification to the agency or the agents, and they require approval, such as any changes at planning, if you will, right? If any changes happen there, they're significant, they may have to come back. Those things can occur. Again, no site work shall commence until all the applicable conditions are satisfied. That was earlier.
Can we add the conservation easement
You can
number,
then
well,
add, if you wanted to talk about
your number 5?
your pervious pavers or driveway requirements or easements, those are the things that you then added at the end of that.
Oh, so they'd be number 11?
Yeah, well, 5 would be deleted.
Oh, then it'll be
So-
number 10.
It'd be the, yeah.
You can replace 5 with whatever you like and then just continue on. Why don't you
So a
replace-
pervious surface driveway wherever permissible by town? Is that, make sense?
Pervious driveways shall be installed where permissible by the town.
Yeah, you said because of the slope?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if we, I'm not for that, but, oops.
Well, there's no
Because
motion,
in-
so you can discuss and then we can nail that down and for some of this.
Because isn't there like a swale on the side of the
Yeah,
driveway?
the
with
driveways are
check
sloped
dams and-
towards,
That's the design,
Mhm.
yes. So as the stormwater report was designed, they were designed to be paved. So, I mean, even if you put in a pervious driveway, well, you'll have less runoff into that swale.
Yeah. I mean, are you thinking about the cost, or what's your thought?
I guess it's more, like, I'm just thinking as a potential, I mean, I know I'm here on the Wetlands Committee, but as like if somebody who is potentially wanting to buy the property, I think they're gonna want paved driveway, but,
They may versus a gravel or
like, I don't know, I personally, like, I know the gravel driveways are nice because everything seeps through, but you get all the divots and it's a pain to drive on.
Well, but we're here for the wetlands.
Right.
Yeah, so.
Well, 2 points, just if you make that condition, the wetlands, the subdivision regulations, I'm not an expert on it, but I believe they require paved driveways for shared driveways. So if you say only where allowed, they're not allowed. That's how that regulation is applied. And I would just be advised, your conditions should have a direct impact on, some relation to reducing impacts on the wetlands. So while you might think it might be better to have impervious surfaces, if the record report suggests that changing it is not going to have any noticeable change based on the engineering drawings you have in front of you, I just caution you to make sure that your decision is based on the record that's provided.
They said they claim they're reducing the runoff by 24% anyway.
You're right. Wetlands or watercourse, we do
Yeah.
have jurisdiction over Patagansett Lake, correct? And that's within, I mean, it's right there.
Right, that's.
So if they're saying there's gonna be sheet flow over into, untreated into the lake, we can condition a swale to prevent that much flow from happening.
Well, the
And
swale's
this-
one thing, the driveway surfaces is another. You're talking two separate things here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, right, okay. Agreed, so,
I understand the swale, I'm saying
Yeah,
I'd leave
the
the driveways
driveway.
alone.
What does everyone else think about the driveways? Like, I'm curious of everyone else's opinion on
Yeah,
the
on the
driveways.
driveways.
I'd leave the driveways as is in the plan. I think we're,
That's how we reviewed it, and we were comfortable with paved driveways. And going forward, based on the stormwater design, to the point that we asked them to take a biofilter out, and looking at this, I think the overall runoff, when Alex was reviewing it, it's basically, there's no change, and as you heard Attorney Gary say, it was a reduction. So I think that he was very comfortable with the low probability of erosion and adverse downstream impacts. In terms of water quality, we have the rain gardens treating those waters as well as the swales alongside the driveways. So from that perspective, that's doing the treatment. What infiltrates will infiltrate. The swale in front along the frontage would just be another temporary conversion, if you will, slow it down, let that water infiltrate, and fines may settle out.
yeah, I would say I'm with you too. The driveways aren't very wide. What,
I
kids to
feel
ride
like the
bikes
engineering,
and
the way that
they have the
the way that they're engineered, the plan's supposed to take care of the runoff.
yeah. Are you okay if we don't include that, Phyllis?
I mean, because they're shared driveways, and I guess it does make a difference.
Okay,
so we're only talking about adding the swales.
correct. Yeah, I mean, I would like to see a conservation easement. It's in the plan to have that 25, or whatever the 25-foot buffer is there. If we can make that an easement, then that means it can stay.
If you require a conservation easement over it, then
Yeah, can we do that as a condition?
the requirements of that easement would require that the vegetation remain. I would probably recommend that it contains some language that it can be maintained,
Yeah, you don't want it to be invasive.
where they can't do anything over there. They
Right.
can't clean it up, and it's just going to become a nuisance.
I mean, where that strip of property is anyway, no one, the property owners don't own it, right?
Well,
Is
the
that-
current landowner owns it, it's part of his lot.
But the new buyers of these houses
will
will
not-
not own it.
They can't go over and clear,
It'll remain
It's not
part
their
of
land.
Right.
Big overall.
6 or 9, I think it was. 55.
The 55 would be remaining part of that.
okay. I mean, what do we think about this? Realistically, I don't think it's gonna be cleared. right? I mean, who would clear it,
It's not their property.
right? So I don't know if it warrants a condition or not. I don't know what we think.
Oh, that's true.
Well, if you want to ensure that the protection of that area, that you,
Okay.
no easement, you don't ensure protection of it.
That satisfies a lot.
Yeah,
Protects the waterway.
yeah, it does. It
Vegetative
does.
buffer, the whole schmear.
It's
Doesn't hurt.
part of the plan. Okay, yeah, let's, can we add that as number 5?
So, adding in, so we're gonna put, well, I was gonna put the Pervious Driveway stuff in as 5, but we can eliminate that.
Leave that off.
So, number 5, we want to require a conservation easement over. So this is referred to as lot 55A. Over the whole portion, the whole piece, or the vegetated portions.
I would say
The 25-foot wide conservation easement
along the lake.
along the lakefront.
Wouldn't it be the 25 feet from the paved portion of the road?
That would make more sense.
Yeah. We have to, protect that water course there from overland flow, so.
So it would read something like, the 25-foot conservation easement from the paved portion of Upper Patagansett Road over lot 55A shall be provided to the town of East Lyme.
There is a note on the plan that says trees, for that area, it says trees and fences to be removed as needed for proper sight lines.
The sightline plan that was,
I saw it.
you saw that?
It was in here.
There is vegetation. Should be
He's
on the
got it
north
right
side of the
there.
road.
I was looking at it earlier.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Just in front of the entrance on the north, sorry, the south side of the road is where they would have to clear for site. G2 or 3 on the sightline set. Green area here, that's hatched, that is the area that across from the entrance now.
Mhm.
They have to clear that vegetation for site.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Then again, back to this area here on the opposite side.
10 feet.
Is there a footage requirement by the town for a site? No.
It says 10 feet on the map.
They're only, not for like how much they clear, or.
It's more
the
visual?
requirement is how much sight line you need.
Literally.
To see oncoming traffic, based on the design speed of the road.
Mhm.
So I think with that, obviously the conservation easement,
Except what,
with the exception of what's being cleared as part of the proposed plan,
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be acceptable.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So did we decide against the swale too?
No,
That's in there.
that's
That
in
is
there.
in there.
That's
Yeah.
It's
staying.
already added, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Swales added is 111.
Yeah. So just the 2 changes
Okay.
or
Yeah,
conditions.
two
I'm
changes.
probably should specify which lots those, but if they're gonna be on the lots, and even if to specify in front of which lots, because that would still be lot 55. You know, if it's not on the individual homeowner lots,
Mm-hmm.
then that swale would be, I think, in front of 58, 50, 51, 52, and 50.
But it wouldn't be on their property, right? It's on 55.
And if you continue it to the entrance to the old Girl Scout camp, it would be on 55 as well. But I don't know, is that where you intended that it be along the entire front?
I guess that I would look to the town engineer to, what he would think would be sufficient to catch the flow there. If there's a high spot, you know, if the flow's heading down towards the Girl Scout property anyway.
I mean, there's a wetland just next to lot 58, so I assume captures a lot of runoff anyway. And I don't think there was any proposal to modify that wetland.
No, there was not. Initially, there was a bioswale that was basically up gradient of the wetland.
I guess, does the agency feel like putting a swale like between that wetland and the road? If the swale is intended to capture the runoff from developed lots, it seems to be strategically placed.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that's kind of where the town engineer would have to work, that you guys, they would have to work together to come up with the best plan. It's not touchscreen.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I see, it would be, you know, ideally in front of those properties, and then there's that big gap where there's no development. And then there's some more properties, so.
So like, if most of this area goes into the wetland.
Right. So it'd be in front of those, yeah, the properties here.
Yeah, like.
And then there's still going to be clearing on the plans at in front of lot 52 and 54 as well. So how that would, I'm sure you can clear and then put a swale in so you clear the vegetation.
Yeah, you would clear before you put the soil in.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
it may be something like a bioswale shall be installed along the north side of Patagansett Road in front of lots 50 to 55.
I think it's 50, 51,
52.
52, 54, and 58.
Mm-hmm.
And would you want, as you know, as required in the opinion of the town engineer, to minimize runoff not treated by the rain gardens?
Yes.
Is that-
Yeah.
So they might be able to be strategically placed
Mm-hmm. Yeah, instead of one huge ditch.
instead of one long ditch
Right.
along, which
Mm-hmm.
may not be the right.
Right. Could pose a potential traffic concern. Okay, okay. I think that's the vice chair's job.
That's you.
Or is it whoever makes the motion has to read it?
Should read this. So you're going to want to read it. Alrighty.
It is, I
Yeah,
think.
here, Dave.
Well, whoa, thanks.
It's our going away gift. the entire letter needs to be written?
No, we don't have to read every word of this, do we?
No, you can read
Just
the motion. I believe I referenced the memo in the motion.
You have to read the motion with all 10 conditions, or?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
Just for one editorial, if you're reading the motion from where on the memo it says proposed motion, and you're referencing the memo dated December 13th, 2021, you want to say as revised during deliberations on this application, however you want to state it.
and where did you put in anything? Oh, there it is, up there. I'm having a hard time reading his writing. We collected a... I think I can read most of it. I'll give it a whirl. Except, oh, well, we're changing one of the whereases, so we have to read that in too then, right? Yeah. I'll read.
Well, it's on the record of your deliberations, and I think if you want your motion to contain, your collective decision. So if you say that it's based on the findings of the memo, dated December 13th, 2021, as revised during the deliberations on this application, then you're pointing whoever reads your motion to look back at the deliberations, specifically that one whereas clause.
Well, I'll give it a whirl. I move that based on these findings, in a memorandum from Gary Gaishel II, Director of Planning, Inland Wetlands Agent to the East Lyme Inland Wetland Agency, dated December 13th, 2021. The agency moves to approve the application
Wait.
That's where you'd say as revised.
as revised during this December 13th meeting, deliberations on this application. Known as application of Kristen Clark P.E. for Cold Spring Lot Management LLC, John Draybeck, owner for Nottingham Hills Subdivision, Phase 5, prepared for Kristen T. Clark P.E., English Harbor Asset Manager LLC, for an 8-lot subdivision of property at 121 Upper Patagansett Road, East Lyme, Assessors Map 35, Lot 44, and is further subject to the following administrative requirements and required modifications to the site plan and other materials submitted in support of this application. One is to notify Conservation Officer at least 2 days prior to construction to inspect the erosion controls. 2, in areas proposed to be loamed and seeded, a low-maintenance lawn such as fescue, which requires minimal application of fertilizers and pesticides, shall be planted. 3, the proposed limits of disturbance LOD shall be strictly adhered to throughout all phases of construction. Install inland wetland tags provided by the Inland Wetland Agency every 25 feet on center along the wetlands boundary. And then we're adding, provide a 25-foot conservation easement from the paved portion of Upper Patagansett Road. We left off the next line. Okay, and shall be provided to the town of East Lyme over lot 55A. An erosion and sedimentation control bond in an amount satisfactory to the town engineer and the Inland Wetland Agency in a form acceptable to the town of East Lyme shall be posted prior to the start of any site work. Any proposed additional work beyond this permit in the wetlands or watercourse or its 300-foot regulated area will require approval from IWA or its certified agent. Any changes to the site plan listed on this permit require notification to the Inland Wetland Agent and may require agency approval. A new plan incorporating said changes shall be given to the agent before any work begins. No site work shall commence until all applicable conditions are satisfied. 10, notify the inland wetland agent upon completion of all regulated activities for final inspection and sign-off. Number 11, a bioswale shall be installed along the north side of Upper Patagansett Road in front of lots 50, 51, 52, 54, and 55 to treat runoff not treated by rain gardens. This approval is specific to the site development plan submitted as the application of Kristen Clark P.E. for Cold Spring Lot Management LLC, John Drabeck owner, for Nottingham Hills Subdivision Phase 5, prepared for Kristen T. Clark P.E. English Harbor Asset Management LLC for an 8-lot subdivision of property at 121 Upper Patagansett Road, East Lyme Assessors Map 35, Lot 44. Any change in the plan, development, plan layout, or any modifications of this approval other than those identified herein shall constitute a new application unless prior approval from the agency or its agent is granted. The applicant owner shall be bound by the provisions of this application and approval.
Just suggest two clarifications. So on the
I can't reach, my arm doesn't work still.
you just didn't designate what side of Patagansett Road, so I would say that's the south and.
It said north.
No, that was for the bioswale.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
Yeah, I don't know that, the easement, I think would be considered the south and west side. Yes.
Okay.
So you could just say you amend your motion to.
I amended to include the southwest side of Patagansett Road
In condition.
in condition 5.
Yeah.
Is it southwest or south and west? It's kind of south and west, it almost has a.
It's on the curve, yeah.
Almost a 90-degree curve.
Are we good? Can-
That's the motion. Anybody?
I second it.
No, you have to first.
All right, all those in favor? Yes, Phil is
Yeah.
there too. Yes, all right. Unanimous. All right, thank you for your time.
So who made the motion? Who made the motion? Oh, okay.
Dave.
Okay, I couldn't hear.
The whole reading of that whole thing with
That was
all
the
the
motion.
motions.
All right, so moving on to pending applications to Gurley Road.
Where's that?
So I think most of you are familiar, except for McIntyre, may not be familiar with this application. I think we did a sidewalk out there prior to about 2 months ago. Obviously, we had a cancellation in our last meeting, so we weren't able to get back to this. But as you know, Mr. Cooper is looking to restore his lawn area adjacent to the stream. I referred this over to Waterford because it is within 500 feet of the town boundary. I have not received any response or comment back from Waterford. As it's been well over 15 days. I'm confident that there's no comment there at this point. So if the agency wanted to render a decision on this tonight, we could. Unfortunately, I do not have anything language prepared. My apologies. However, we do have the previous permit, so we could reference that and take a look at, because essentially it's the same proposed work, just further downstream. Everybody's comfortable taking a shot at that.
Thank you. Do we have, sorry.
For this property?
Yeah.
I have pictures if you're interested in looking at them. It's, I think exit 75. I don't know, is it 75?
Yeah. Is this
Yeah.
that? It's like my favorite house ever.
Mine too.
put, like, when was this? Which meeting is this, November 8th?
Yeah.
I was hoping I had an memo with the other one. I don't, I still back and forth. So I guess if you were looking for language.
Which agenda are you using?
One that was given me today.
No, because that's
I
not what's
added it.
posted.
No,
Oh,
it's
okay,
not.
that's
We-
right.
we
Yeah,
added
that's
it at
right.
the
Yeah,
start.
I'm sorry, okay. No wonder I can't find it.
So you might want to, like, here was like the permitted activity. That's probably pretty explicit. Stream bank restoration, floodplain mitigation, including installation of armament along the western stream bank of Royal Mill Brook. Placement, in this case, that was 3 large boulders. This would be the placement of boulders, because we don't know how many that's going to require, but within the stream channel, modification of a graded riffle bed, and plantings within the floodplain. There, obviously, those are all the conditions. So we could use some of this language to get to a motion.
Greg, are you familiar with this application at all?
Slightly, not in depth.
Well, I mean,
I mean, it's pretty simple to explain.
yeah, I can. Here's the picture. So, continue with this view.
Must have remediated lawn beside the street.
This is even if they were off, you can see there was significant flooding within the floodplain.
So this is a previous application, and this is
So the area closest to the culvert, the road, the previous homeowner had obtained a permit to armor the stream bank. That was the permit I was just reading from.
Oh, sorry, I took it.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Read all you want. And
Because you're going to have to read it out loud.
Yeah,
I don't
do it this time.
so what he's asking you to do is take the same methodology and apply it downstream about 50 yards or so, maybe less, 25, where he suffered some serious scour. That area was formerly lawn.
Do you have a start date for this, Mr. Cooper? No.
Do we-
It's not gonna be able to finish, right? We can't, so we can put the boulders back in, we can put some soil back in, but we can't plant till spring now because we lost 3 months. Right, because it's gonna, it'll rain.
Yeah,
I can't see. So,
Well, you can hit it with winter rye temporarily, and that should probably hold it through till the spring.
yeah, I'm just, if you're asking for an end date, I can't give you an end
Yeah.
date yet because we can't go out now.
I would say spring of 2022.
Right, yeah. April, May, whenever you're
Right.
receiving.
Maybe
If it's
so.
a lawn, I can't see the lawn until April or May. And the grass is done.
Correct. I mean, I would think you could go in there, stabilize the area, give it all prep, hit it with winter rye, to help stabilize it through the winter. The weather's warm enough, that'll pop in a day or so.
No, I don't need to know.
So
I was
that's-
just
that would be something they
pointing
could
to
do,
Gary.
stabilize it, they can't get the plantings in, so I would say the end of the growing season.
And hay, put hay on it, would that help stabilize it?
Yeah, you seed it and then hit it. Whether they use hydro seed, I probably wouldn't use a hydro seed that close to the stream. It's probably not, it's not that big of an area to warrant hydro seed.
Spread it by hand.
Spread it by hand.
Oh, it's like it's not dramatically like
Do we have any discussion on this? We good to make a motion?
Go for it.
Can I ask clarification before I start my motion? So like this part where it says modification to the aggregated riffle bed, feature downstream of Gurley, like, can I just end that there? And not such that it be lowered?
Yes.
Okay.
We don't need to
And then the plantings, you can just say the plantings will be done in the spring,
Look at that, there's a typo.
2022?
I would say that the planting should be
Did you
installed.
notice that?
Yeah, or It's intended
Patagansett.
that plantings will go in.
Well, he's not doing plantings, he's seeding it.
He's gonna temporarily, but then he's gonna put in vegetation to hold
Oh, you
the
are?
bank, like
Yeah.
those,
Yeah, the
those
same.
large grasses is what we recommend.
Around
Oh,
the
that's right.
southern
Yep.
end,
Um,
'cause they seem to hold it.
So I would just word that to say just require the plantings. His problem when he gets it in, I can always go after that and enforce that and say you gotta put your plantings in. You could say, or you could specify that the plantings shall be installed before the end of the first growing season of 2022. April, May.
The sooner he does it, the
31st.
better too. And
Okay,
he knows it.
okay. Okay. Okay, so I move to approve the stream bank, restoration and floodplain mitigation, including the installation of armament along the western stream bank of Oil Mill Brook, placement of large boulders within the stream channel, modification of an aggregated riffle bed, and plantings within the floodplain, and with the following conditions. The placement of the boulders will be 2 to 3 feet in diameter within the pool and placed in random pattern after the bank armor is completed. Modification to the aggregated riffle bed features downstream of the Gurley Road culvert. Vigorous planting of native tree and shrub species within the floodplain of the project area. Is that accurate? Is that,
But it's in, project area is in the floodplain. Yes, that's right.
but you're gonna plant trees too and
Not trees, but
just
shrubs.
shrubs? Okay, so vigorous planting
There's
of
existing-
shrub
There's trees
species.
there, the trees.
Shrub species within the floodplain of the project area. Notify the conservation agent at least 2 days prior to the construction to inspect erosion controls. 5, notify conservation agent upon completion to sign off on permit. 6, changes to the plan shall require additional approval. A new plan will be submitted prior to construction. 7, additional work beyond the permitted activities shall require approval from the commission or its agent. 8, a $75 silt fence inspection fee is required before construction activities begin. No site work, this is still part of 8, no site work shall commence until all applicable conditions are satisfied. 9, the plantings shall be installed by the end of the first growing season of 2022,
May 31st.
which is May 31st of 2022. And 10, a bond sufficient to cover the cost and installation of the proposed plantings as determined by the inland wetlands agent shall be posted in a form of acceptable to the town of East Lyme prior to the start of any construction.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Everybody?
Thank you.
Good luck.
Yes.
All right, moving on.
Do you need to see this at all?
Yeah, I was gonna take.
Okay.
Thank you.
No old business. Okay. All set? Okay. So chairman's report. So there is a few things I wanted to bring up today. The first is the Zaglic and Construction, Paz and Construction, North Bridebrook Affordable Housing Development. It was mentioned last meeting that there was a pond that was filled.
Yeah, so just to clarify,
Someone sent me pictures that seem a bit suspicious.
yeah, so I got contacted by Mr. Mark Salerno back on December 7th, I'm sorry, prior to that. I tried to send him some copies of what I just handed out. This was the site plan that was presented to the agency when they made their application to wetlands. What I would just note is the soils report that was provided was done by James Sipperly, and they were delineated by two soil scientists. The first was Michael Schaefer, on a map dated January 30th, 2019, and again, Jim Sipperly did it with this application. And Mr. Sipperly agreed with Mr. Schaefer's flagging, and as such, I think it might be difficult to dispute. Two soil scientists were in agreement that the water course as delineated with the wetlands are what they are on the property. As far as any other water courses, ponds, marshes, bogs, swamps, there would be none. So I think the complaint was just a complaint about.
Well, so I assume Mr. Salerno sent you the pictures. If you look on the town GIS maps from 2017, I should have printed them up.
Where this is on the,
So
in relation
this
to.
this is the whole property here, and then if you look on the maps, there's an excavator, and there's some activity going on here. And if you remember when we did the site walk, there was a big clearing out way up in the.
That landing is where we started our site walk. That was the area I
Right.
thought they were questioning.
So this is what this was somehow, there was activity done here. And the property, it looks like that there was, what the neighbors had said is that they used to ice skate back here on this pond, that the soil scientists are saying there was nothing there. But why would there be an excavator here in 2017 and this activity here randomly when it's like by the highway away from, I mean, this was done, the road's way up here. There was a random excavator back here in the middle of the woods. I'm just curious what was there prior. And I really, if the soil scientists are saying no issue, then can we have them go and dig a test pit to see if there's wetland soils in this location?
Look, I mean, I certainly can go investigate it.
I mean, it was, I know, I remember being up there and it struck me as odd that there was this clearing. We walked all through this wooded area and then there was this clearing up there.
Right.
So if the neighbors are saying they used to ice skate here and there was water here, and then we walk up and no one's finding water 3 years later when the soil scientist comes through, it just seems that I think we should do our due diligence and investigate that a bit.
We certainly can. I don't know that we can turn back the clock. Whether it was Mr. Pizzaglio who filled it or the previous landowner who filled it.
Well, he owned the property since 2016. So he'd be if you look on the maps, you can see in 2016 it's undisturbed, and then in 2017 there's an excavator there. That's on the town maps. I mean, there's an excavator right there. So,
Do anything shady, would he?
I mean,
Where in relation,
We
like
held
on
a public
here,
hearing. We denied the
is-
application.
sorry.
During that public hearing, we listened to Mr. Sipperly. I believe he was actually in
I
attendance.
believe it's going to be.
And based on that information, we made our decision. Obviously, we denied it. It's currently under appeal, that decision, and then the applicant went forward, modified his plans, and took all of the activity in the upland review area out. So the project went in front of zoning, as there were no proposed regulated activities. I eliminated that. That plan got approved by the zoning commission, which includes the council, I did reach out to them today to find out when they can attend the next meeting in January to give us our wetland 101 and maybe comment on our pending litigation.
I mean, it is possible if there was a wetland area or water course there in 2017, and if it was filled by the time the soil scientists came in 2019 and delineated the wetlands, they wouldn't have seen it.
Correct. That's
So where did the water go?
Well, this person has informed me that their driveway in their basement now floods, and that was kind of what sparked them to go look on the property because they're having a lot of flooding issues.
Well, there is
Are
a,
they up or down gradient?
They're down, I believe, on the right side of, if you're looking at the property.
This property slopes to the south overall. I would be hard pressed to understand how this property is affecting that one based on the grading, the existing topography out there. But I mean, it's possible that this area, I don't know, that's cleared somehow. Maybe there's a portion of it that was up gradient that was cleared. I mean, vegetation's cleared. As you drive by, the majority of the lots be cleared. So I guess I couldn't explain why they're having flooding issues in the basement when they're high groundwater. What we typically tell many people is that we have these storms now that are more frequent, more intense, and well, maybe shorter in duration, just more frequent, more intense, and the ground gets saturated. And you're going to get, the result of some hydraulic pressure, water in your basement.
It happens.
It happens. I don't know.
I've seen Lyme.
I've seen it firsthand, plenty of it.
There wasn't a wetland or a pond out there. If there was, we have no record
So-
other than the neighbor's description. And I think that's difficult to dispute when you don't have a.
Well, if you did a test pit, you could discover if there's wetland soils there.
You'd have to go down 22 inches, and then obviously whatever they filled. So, I mean, you have to look at it and say, okay, you keep digging and keep digging and keep digging until it's all filled. I suppose, I mean, how far down do you go before you find the original native soils that the doctor was.
so there is a drain on the same side, and it's got a pipe that points down into the drain. It's a white pipe. Where is that coming from? You ever noticed it?
I have. I think that comes from one of the houses.
I'll have to take a picture next time I go up to
I'll follow up with our Bill Shearer, deputy director, public works. I'm sure he just knows something more about that pipe because it does discharge directly into the catch basin.
Right, it's kind of odd. You don't see anything anyplace else, but,
And I believe that pipe belongs to the athletic landowner.
so can they do that legally?
All of this, not do anything though.
Well, the pipe's been there for as long as I can remember. I don't know that that's typically what we would do in engineering terms today. We would punch a hole in the back of the catch basin and let all that water just dump into it that way. I'm not sure how the pipe ever got constructed or how it ever got installed in that configuration. It works, but it's a little different. You don't have falls discharging this from the top of storm catch basins, but
So eventually that water goes into what, the Rocky Neck area?
well, depending on where the drainage design is, I have to look at the watershed because you have Bride Lake. Most of that is,
Oh, yeah.
once you get beyond that, we're kind of parallel with that. So I would say some of that runoff may make it. I think that catch basin makes it to Bride Lake. I think some of the other runoff goes the other way. But in the proposed development, it should infiltrate, and when it doesn't, it should flow into the existing road system, which I believe discharges to Bride Lake as well. I think most of this ends up in Bride Lake. Which then discharges to. So that's the story on that. As best I can tell you, I'll be happy to go out there. I have a fogger downstairs. There's all you have on the site, and Roger down.
Yeah, I mean, I think it warrants a little bit more investigation. I mean,
But, you know, I'd have to talk to council and find out what course of action the commission would have to take, what's entailed with enforcement as far as.
I mean, I don't want to make accusations. I mean, I'd like to investigate this a bit, but, you know, obviously a pond in the middle of a property for proposed development, and if all of a sudden it's not there, you're allowed to develop more. So, I mean, we should not be allowing that to occur if that is something that occurred in this town. So I think that that's something that we need to really seriously look into.
I'll let Mr. Pacelli know that we continue to look into this, and I'll contact council, because we're probably going to need their assistance, being that we've already issued a permit for the project, based on the soil reports that were provided by two soil scientists. So,
Post work. Post.
Is it a possibility somebody might have pictures of kids, you know, skating on here?
I'm wondering about that. I can find out.
I recall during the public hearing, we heard stories about how the water was waist high.
Yep.
And one comment, I think, from the commission was, well, how old were you? You know, I mean, again, that memory, when you were a small kid, you could have been waist high. So, you know, to what extent, again, my professional opinion is I think we're gonna be hard pressed to determine that there was a water course there because two soil scientists said there wasn't. But again, as you said through the pictures, you know, we can take another look through those. We can go back to Yukon, they have historical aerial photos.
This is the
From
first.
the 1930s, all
There's
the way
nothing
forward.
here.
So we can take a look at all of those years.
There's an
prior to
excavator
see
here.
I see there's something there, yeah.
And then if you look over it, that's where the clearing was, where it looks like it was filled. And then that's the same, just kind of in the middle of the property.
So
It could be crappy soil.
Could be, it could
The
be,
first
could,
picture you
coulda,
had?
woulda, shoulda.
That, what year is that?
and, you know,
2016.
and the other claim is how does, you
What
know,
if it's a
there's
pond?
and the property owner obviously has a concern of trespass.
Right.
These claims are being brought forward, how, you know, by whom, and what evidence do they have that are a water course? Did they trespass on my property? So I think we need to be mindful of that as well.
Agreed.
That, answer that, and then,
What did I do?
Oh, you have it on the camera. Just the pictures.
I don't wanna take pictures with your iPad.
All right, and then so the next one, we discussed briefly the school bus parking lot.
so, I'm thinking, well, it's out there, if we can improve the lot, it may make a better situation if it was to be paved, curbed, and collect the stormwater. Discussions with the town engineer and, deputy director of public works, they suggested maybe the existing condition is a better solution environmentally. I think we might have to take a closer look at it and really determine what the best solution would be with the existing site. That said, it's not the most ideal place for the buses, in my opinion, in terms of the pond being right there. I think there's a better, more adequate space available, certainly. So talking with Mr. Newton and Mr. Siri, we can start exploring alternative options. So we're open to that. As we grow, these are just some of the growing pains we'll have to do to figure out how we can accommodate buses and where they can be located in town. There was discussions about possibly a safety building. I don't know if that would be large enough space to put in vehicles, just like the buses there, in great quantity, but
When they go there.
we can keep looking. So that would be the status update on that.
And there's no room for all the bus drivers to park at the middle school, correct? That's another issue too, is they
where
all
they're
park.
parking on the shoulder. So
Yeah.
It's destroying the shoulder, the grass, and
Hard
obviously
panic.
creates a runoff issue, right? It's an
Yep.
erosion issue off the road. So yeah, those are the concerns that we have.
Yeah, I just wanted to keep it on the table, so we just make sure we stay on top of that and try to find some alternate solutions. All right, then moving on to Inland Wetlands Agent Report.
You should.
Oh, we have old business though, the Smiths.
I had none on mine.
Oh,
Oh, we were gonna put Gurley Road under old, but we put it under pending?
Oh, whoops.
Yeah.
I did put under pending, yeah.
Yeah, that's where we go. There's
Oh,
a
okay.
pending application, we just, that's put it on the agenda.
Okay,
And
okay.
then your question was,
the Smith property on Route 1, next to where they launched the boats. Remember we denied his application?
yes, we denied his application, so I advised them that they would have to make application for the use. So he's aware of that. His plans are to put that application together.
Is there a period of time that he has to do that?
I probably should revisit the enforcement action and just take a look at where that is in terms of the dates, and that may need to be reissued, specifying a date to either bring forward an application or to rectify and remediate the issue. So we drop that either we get an application or the site is completely clear, remediated, that, no stockpile.
Well, can he do business there while there's no permit?
I would say he does not have a wetland permit necessarily for the use, the commercial use of the land. We haven't looked at anything, but that typically falls under zoning. I did talk to Mr. Mahone and asked him if he would take a look at it as well, because it's we argue it's pre-existing non-conforming use. So zoning can't do anything, it certainly needs a permit by this commission to conduct regular activities, which may involve, of course, a part of running his business out of that site does disturb the site, so those are the regular activities. We get regular, in and out, tracking pad, things like that we can require to be maintained. So I'll take a look at the enforcement action, and if I have to reissue it, I'll go ahead and reissue it. Otherwise, sitting here, it's just he's waiting for me to enforce the action.
All right, so we're on to your Inland Wetlands Agent Report.
I believe in the materials there was a report of the permit issue. Remember them all off the top of my head. As far as commission issued permits, I certainly can put these on here. I haven't been really tracking them a whole lot. But if you'd like, I can go on to things like Rocky Neck Village, which is currently under construction, and just report on that out there today. The site is relatively stable, but they're still doing site work. They've got one detention basin they need to finish. COs had been granted for several of the units. I think there's 3 or 4 buildings that are yet to be CO'd and are still under construction. So once they button those up, they should be finished up the site work hopefully soon. Being that we're in December, I suspect the remainder will be done in spring of 2022.
What about the Rustic Cafe?
Rustic Cafe, I approved a permit for the addition to that.
Sorry, I don't, did you hand it in the big packet? Was
There was a bigger package, architecturals with it. I know I reviewed it, addition permit for it. Did you want to see?
Oh, no, I was just, you said there was a few, and I'm just not seeing where they're listed.
They were, separate in the email.
Oh, there we
Yeah,
go.
so-
That's what I was looking for. Okay.
So how come there's no cost to that one?
There should, maybe the computer didn't, for whatever reason, generate it. They did pay a fee. They paid a large fee,
Okay.
if I recall.
was looking at it before, I can't find it now, but that's okay.
Yeah. So how far are they from the wetland? Because I know years ago they had issues with septic.
Yes, so I did inquire about the existing septic, and it's currently functioning properly. They should be, I believe, roughly 25 to, septic's about 25 feet from the stream. I would say they're about 75 feet to the stream from the existing patio. So being that they were basically taking this greenhouse and putting over the existing patio area, it's impervious surface for impervious surface, although they are providing some vegetated boxes or landscape type feature around the greenhouse, which will collect the roof runoff from the greenhouse. Land anyway.
Yeah, their square footage disturbed is basically the same, right?
Yeah, basically the same. Theoretically, with this new vegetated feature, which is an architectural feature as well, should improve the runoff. All of that. Planting vegetated boxes. They're required. I haven't seen anything like that. Based on what Brian Shook, the architect, was telling me, it's a large planted box. It's probably 3 feet of soil. Different, but okay. Any other questions? That's all I have.
Enforcement, any enforcement?
As I mentioned, Boston Post Road, we discussed that. Currently, I have no pending enforcement actions that are outstanding. See anything, let me know. We'll chase it down.
All set too, no correspondence, we're good.
I have no other correspondence. As I said, we'll have the town attorney here next month, and an ex officio will be appointed, and they should be here as well. Then, just for those of you whose terms are up and want to be reappointed, I recommend that you reach out to Sandy or Kevin tomorrow, and put the bug in their ear, and then they're going to be meeting in the week, or next week. So, if you want to get reappointed, I'll probably take it most likely.
All right. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? All right.